Hello, dear friends. We all complain about problems, but what are we doing to fix the world? Opinion piece. Time is running out. The awakening has come. Time is speeding up. The bubble is inflated. It has grown exponentially. Evil has gone too far. Everything has to get worse to get better. A new divine law must be established. Recession fears rock the economy. Xi Jinping purges 5 million leaders. Let's start. Time grows ever shorter between all of us and the promises of heaven, but tensions and problems must be addressed. What would become of everyone's finances if banks decided to absorb their customers' funds to save themselves in the form of a corralito? It is an action permitted by law in many countries, according to Caroline Oceana Ryan. Laws protecting the old power structure, including the old economic forms, were created by those who feel they have the most to lose, once their own machinations brought about one form of economic collapse or another. They have planned to bring things back to dust, so that they are in a position to reap out whatever assets remain and claim them for themselves, while the rest of us struggle. This era carries a light and a higher purpose, breaking through the old facade, which has known no other era on Earth. If you expect the illusions of regularity to continue, the outer structures of life on Earth to continue undisturbed, until some magical day when Gisara is announced, this cannot be so. Everything has to get worse in order to get better. Loss of freedom. The increasing loss of freedom for humankind was allowed by our species long ago, when the great experiment of duality was permitted for the experiences and new forms of self-knowledge it would bring us as individuals, as cultures, and as planetary species. It may seem incredible to us now that we can desire the despair that humankind has endured for centuries, and indeed we do not desire the extremes of three-dimensional experience, not to the exaggerated extreme that we have experienced. That is why Earth and her soul groups sent out a call, asking for help in ridding the planet of those forces that had taken things too far. We ourselves were among those who responded to help the planet and protect it from further destruction, and to help humankind to participate in the frequencies of light now arriving, originating from the great central sun. These frequencies could have been enough to break the system so that the Earth could sustain itself while the power structure worked at its highest density, and so you stepped forward to assist. It is the work of beings of light, such as yourselves, that has sustained humankind as they moved from a place of dark despair and unsustainable life forms, which was leading to the disintegration of the planet to a life form that is transitioning to a fifth dimensional level. This is not magic. It is a movement of unexpected and inexplicable joy that suddenly bursts forth and lifts all who witness it to new heights. You are saving your planet, your humankind, and your own soul by the light you carry, and install deeply into the earth and all living systems, purely by your presence. We will not describe what would have happened on earth had you not come forward at this time, asking to assist many in the higher realms, along with millions of benevolent beings from all parts of the galaxy and from throughout this universe, you and they have answered the call to come and help at time when life hangs so precariously by a thread. Your presence and that of others has meant averting the extremes to which life on earth might have gone had you not come forward at this time. Nostalgia. However, some days you feel that the loss of the old earth is too extreme, too shocking. You wish that the economic systems would remain as they were, that everything would remain as it has always been, however unequal and unjust those systems were, for that is what you have known for centuries. If you prefer that relationships, jobs, health systems, and even governments remain as they were until that beautiful moment when all is well, however, the roots of the old system had to be pulled up before the new constructions could be planted. For one thing, the soil, air and water must be purified, and the obvious need for change must be clear to the vast majority of humankind. The challenge, then, is not only to remain patient and calm during the great changes and upheavals, but also to welcome or at least accept the tremors and shocks of the great changes. These changes are those exact reorganizations that are bringing about the social, economic, environmental, and the political structures of the divine new earth that you have long imagined. In the midst of the turmoil you see now, observe how those who have long corrupted your systems have created a structure that has only served a small minority, suppressing the natural joy, gifts, intentions, dreams, and the inherent rights of the vast majority. Doubts. Be aware that many would doubt and diminish the importance of great change, the necessity for it, without first realizing why a new divine law must be established now. Most of the humankind would have preferred to remain in the struggle, for that is all they have known for thousands of years. The power and attraction of the familiar has been your safe haven from the uncertainty of change, and yet change has come and many more are on the way. You are aware of this, but you judge the changes that are occurring as too dark or too difficult, too strenuous, and too full of uncertainty. And where is this beautiful new earth that so many have dreamt of for so long? It is within us. You are the ones who give birth to it in the present moment. You bring it forth when you are happy and cultivate inner calm each morning before you begin your day. You have invested your life energies not in the unchanging sameness of the old, which has been your cage, not your comfort, but in the new. Celebrate the changes. Much of this is born of pain, shock, disbelief, and yet out of this agonizing birth pangs, the new humankind is born. You have come to anchor the light, and you are doing just that. Cleansing. This is a much bigger journey than sitting and waiting for things to get better. It is greater than being unhappy to see the old false family structure dissolve. Despite the oppressive reaction of the old power structure, despite the outbursts of violence or bad behavior, open your eyes and look. The awakening has come, as is evident by the loud clamor raised by the old crowd as they are torn from their thrones. The view at this moment may seem bleak. Accept it as a cleansing, as the most logical and necessary end to a dark age that has lasted for thousands of years. Let these events awaken the masses. while reminding them to remain rooted in a finer inner reality, without constant reference to outer appearance. Because appearance is everything. You live in a kind of hologram where the co-creation of outer life, including peace and abundance, is waiting for you to project your thought, image, and expectation. The rest is up to you. Look up to the sky and remember who you are. You are never alone. Time in a Hurry. The Dullness of Time by Talani via Ben Rafael Guevara. The pace of time is accelerating, but it's not just that time is speeding up, it's also that time is becoming something very different. Depending on the degree to which you are asleep or awake, the strangeness of time begins to increase as you venture into the realms of unity consciousness. And so, for those who are in less awakened state, you may perceive this as a phenomenon of aging and that time seems to speed up, for this has been a belief among your species for many generations. But this is not so, for rather it is the experience of time that is speeding up. An even closer statement would be to say that the consciousness of those experiencing the illusion of linear time is processing information and events at a faster rate, and therefore this results in an experience of time moving faster and faster. This has much to do with revolutions, rotations, spirals, and cycles of your planetary movement within your solar system, the movement of your solar system within the galaxy, and the movement of your galaxy within the universe. Those who find themselves traveling through more awakened states of consciousness are having an experience of time that can hardly be pinpointed or explained. All of this is occurring within a species whose consciousness is ascending to its next level of orientation, and therefore the very concept of time itself is being deconstructed. Many will find themselves a little confused, a little wonky, a little ungrounded, because it is difficult to land when you are moving in and out of time. And so, our suggestion to those who are having this experience is to ground deeply, not just in the earth matrix, but in the self. For if one is truly rooted and centered within the self, in all its glory, then one can always have a firm foundation upon which to stand when experiencing the instability of time. We know that this can be a very unsettling and unnerving time for some, and it can be an exciting journey for others. Do not allow yourselves to fall into states of worry or fear of this experience of accelerating time. It is all part of the process of the awakening consciousness of humankind. Revolution. The Second American Revolution could be a world revolution. The rules-based world order is negotiating a surrender to the Global Coalition for Freedom, according to Benjamin Fulford. The movement to replace and renew the United Nations, the World Bank, the BIS, the IMF, etc., is being backed by an international boycott of the G7 group of countries that control only 31% of world GDP and 11% of the world's population. This is being backed up with an energy and economic boycott that will force the G7 economies to come to an almost complete halt in a matter of months. Europe has already been cut off from Russian gas and has also lost oil and gas supplies from Libya and Algeria, while mysterious problems have shut down half of France's nuclear power generators. A cut-off from Middle Eastern oil could be next. uncontrolled. Central banks admit they have lost control of inflation, according to Jaime Carrasco, and there is plenty of evidence from our debt-based system that a currency restart is coming. Governments taking on the debts of banks was evidence that some kind of currency restart is on the cards. While trade patterns are changing rapidly, and gold is part of that equation. Gold should be around 3,000 depending on inflation. We do not have the supply of commodities in the West to keep prices low. Central banks keep buying gold, while telling the public that it is a precious stone. The rest of the world has realized that Russia, as a major energy supplier, is able to back its currency with oil. This will allow China, India and Russia to trade outside the system. Much of the world, including Latin America, is lining up behind China and India. Today, most of the copper produced in Chile is exported to China. It is likely that Chile will soon switch to alternatives to the dollar. We are witnessing a huge power shift to the east. The era of cheap stuff from Asia is over. We are going to have to start building our own industries. When gold is delinked, we will see a rapid change in price. This is because of the huge imbalances, and there will be a rush to buy. News from the reset. CERN's Large Hadron Collider has started smashing particles at 13.6 trillion volts, setting a new world record. CERN will attempt to break 20-hour energy records in the largest science experiment in history. Why now? 140 countries have asset-backed currency that has been traded since 3rd July. The Iraqi dinar was placed on a platform that was connected to the quantum financial system. As of 4th July, no more dollars are being printed, either inside or outside the US. 13 people have been arrested for printing dollars beyond 4th July 2022. Flights were no longer going in and out of Iraq and other countries, including 80% of commercial flights, because the White Hats wanted to detain certain people. The EBS emergency broadcast system has been tested for the past 3 days. In some cities, people were asked to stay at home while arrests were being carried out. Seeing is Believing by Logan B. The coalition says it doesn't need to wait for banks to comply with ISO 20022 for gold-backed currency. Saint-Germain just said it won't happen as long as nations continue to support the dark side in current conflicts. He also said that 3D will be allowed to continue on Earth for at least another 26,000 years. There would be clearly marked areas of 5D and 3D, just as in biblical times when the holy people dwelt on the mountain tops and the heathen savages stayed in the valleys. The two wouldn't mix, but this is only a personal opinion. Crisis. China is sending nothing at the moment. $6 billion disappear from Chinese banks, and 400,000 Chinese are left with nothing. Xi Jinping anti-corruption campaign purges 5 million leaders after a decade in power. China's claims in the South Sea are clearly illegal in quotes, says expert. Japan will have a long, hot summer due to sabotage at its nuclear power plants. Japan faces torrential rains from a typhoon and a historic heat wave. South Korea's inflation in June reached 6%, a 24-year high. A cut in oil supplies from the Middle East this autumn would bring the Japanese economy to a halt. The US is also cut off from international oil markets and will deplete its strategic oil reserves by the end of the year. They want to decimate the supply chain that provides food and energy. That is why the G7 will have no choice but to try to reach a peace deal with the rest of the world at the G20 meeting in Indonesia this week. Sri Lanka quickly collapses without food and fuel as the government suspends the sale of petrol and appeals to Russia for help. Bitcoin lost 58% of its value in 2022, the worst quarterly performance in a decade. Europe. Fears of recession shake European stock markets and the euro. The euro falls below $1.03, its lowest in almost 2 decades. Germany, France and the UK face an energy catastrophe as Russia steadily reduces natural gas supplies. European Parliament considers gas and nuclear investments green. Mitsotakis told the European Parliament that Greece has regained control of its economy. Venice to charge €10 for single-day visitors to reduce the influx of tourists. Protests. Small farmers in the Netherlands are fighting their government's nitrogen emissions policy. Protesters dump manure on government offices over regulations that would lead to the disappearance of a third of Dutch farms. Dutch fishermen join farmers' protests by blockading major ports. A US court ruling could take 700,000 trucks off the roads. Amazon closes 16 warehouses due to lack of inventory. A wheat field is on fire in western Romania. The fire has covered about 100 hectares. Anna von Wright. Opinion. Anna von Wright. Have you ever wondered what happened to all the people of the great civilizations of the past? Where did they go? Their civilizations have flourished, sometimes for thousands of years, and then suddenly disappear in a relatively short period of time. Worshipping an all-devouring God has its advantages and disadvantages. Americas. Former Peruvian judge César Inostroza disappears in Spain after being ordered arrested for extradition to his country of origin. 1,000 migrants demand permits in southern Mexico to transit to the USA. New minister ratifies Argentina's economic course amid tensions. New arson attack in southern Chile on the anniversary of the death of a Mapuche. Lower copper prices signal fatal losses for the Chilean peso. Ecuador's health minister resigns from Lazo's government. Guillermo Lazo appoints a new minister of economy after strong indigenous protests led to the president to commit to compensations that will demand more than $700 million a year. Storm Bonnie left only material damage in Nicaragua, according to the government. Venezuela's criminal gangs adopt the Colombian guerrilla system. Russia and Ukraine. Moscow criticizes Macron after publishing the content of a private conversation with Putin. Russia's break with the West destroys the world order, according to Social. The European Commission prepares a legal framework to seize Russia's frozen assets and redirect to Ukraine. Ukraine's allies talk of reconstruction as Russia consolidates gains in Donbass. Russia launches offensive to control Donetsk after Lugansk triumph. Russian troops claim to have entered Lysychansk. Russia refloats the Saratov. The ship sank by its own crew after Ukrainian attack. Are arms supplied to Ukraine ending up to the darknet markets? United Nations talks of more than 300,000 civilians killed in Syria's war in a decade. Jihadist attack on Nigerian prison causes 600 inmates to escape. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.